Next up, partnerships. A partnership is when you have two or more owners jointly owning it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be evenly divided. You could have one partner who owns, say, 90% of it, and another person who only owns 10%. It could be divided up among many people in many different ways. However, it remains that you have more than just one owner. You've got two or more. Now, in order to become a partnership, you typically have some sort of agreement, some articles of partnership that you guys wind up signing off on in order to establish who's going to do what, who owns what percentage of the business, all of those things. And really, that's just to protect each one of the partners in case things go wrong. Contracts always exist for when things go wrong. If everything always went right, we would never need a contract now, would we? All right. If partners don't form articles of partnership, and that happens sometimes, they just decide to throw caution to the wind, or they're naive and don't know any better, and they just start up a business without any sort of agreement ahead of time, and then they would fall under the Uniform Partnership Act, which is something that exists in multiple states, or a variation of it is going to be in just about every state. I think this is being like common law marriage for business partnerships. So rules that govern a partnership if they haven't established their own rules ahead of time. All right. Go. There we are. So we got three types of partnership. The first type is a general partnership. And this is kind of what you usually think of when we talk about partnerships. It's going to be where all partners have some sort of even ownership. Well, I shouldn't say even ownership because, again, the percentages could be different. But all the partners are responsible for running the business. They'll have ownership in the business. They'll have financial obligations to the business. If the business is in debt, that means they're all liable for that debt. Oftentimes, they'll divide up responsibilities for running the business if they want to be efficient about it, etc. You also have a limited partnership. A limited partnership is going to be where you have one or more people who run the business. They're the managing partners. And then you have other partners who are the silent partners. They're the limited partners. Now, the limited partners are not involved in running the business. They may not even have any kind of say whatsoever in how the business operates. However, they have invested in the business and they own a chunk of the business. And when the business makes a profit, they get some of that money. Okay. But again, they're not involved in running it, and also they don't have liability. So that's also one of the upsides, is you don't get to run it, but you don't have liability. So if the business is in debt, the creditors who are owed money cannot come after you if you're one of the limited partners. All right, so that's the advantage of being limited. If you want an example of this, think of something like Shark Tank, right? So Mark Cuban invests in one of those Shark Tank businesses. It's not like Mark Cuban is there actually running the business. No. He's going to be more of a limited partner. He's invested in it. He owns it. At least a percentage of it. He gets some of the profit. He'll give advice from time to time, but he's not involved in running it on a regular basis. So limited partnership, you have one or more partners who run it, and then you have other partners who are limited, do not run it, and are limited from the liability, hence the name. All right. And the third type is called an LLP, a limited liability partnership. And this is where you have multiple partners. However, they all have limited liability from each other. Typically, this is isolated legally in most states to just a few different professions, certain types of professions. Usually medical professions, legal professions, lawyers, law firms, maybe accountants. It's where you'll have partners in a practice of some sort of another. But something could go wrong, and one of those partners gets sued. Well, an LLP means that if one of those partners gets sued for doing something wrong, the person suing can't go after all the other partners at the same time. So let's say that one doctor screws up and he gets sued for medical malpractice. The person suing that one doctor can't also sue the other doctors at the same time for that malpractice. It doesn't work that way. So it limits liability for each of the partners from what each of the partners do. All right? So that's an LLP. So we got our general partnership, our limited partnership, our limited liability partnership. General partnership, everybody's relatively equal and runs the business. Limited partnership, You wind up having silent partners in the background, and then limited liability. Everybody's limited in the liability from each other. Now, advantages in a partnership. First of all, it's still relatively easy to start, especially if you only have a small number of people starting the business. It's semi-easy to end because there's only going to be a few. That can differ depending on the number of partners and the nature of the ending, right? Think of a business divorce and things can go badly. There's still no double taxation. We saw the sole proprietorship, so the profit is only taxed once. It's easier to raise money at the outset than what you see with the sole proprietorships. And the reason for this is you have more people putting money in at the outset. Not only that, but banks are going to be willing to loan the business more money because there's more people who are putting themselves at risk, at stake. Basically, there's more people who could pay the loan back if something goes wrong than in a sole proprietorship where there's only one person. Okay? So that means a partnership can start up with more money than what a mere sole proprietorship would be able to. Okay, you also have more shared decision making, you have more skills, you have more knowledge, more experience at play here, more brains in the mix are hopefully able to come to better business decisions. You can also divide up the responsibilities. So let's say you're that baker from the sole proprietorship, you're really good at baking, you stink at business, you go into business with somebody who's good at accounting and managing employees and whatnot. Well, you divide up the responsibilities then. You can focus on the baking aspect, the other person can focus on the business and the accounting aspect, and the business can actually operate more efficiently and better that way because of it. So you have advantages there with a partnership and dividing up responsibilities. Now, disadvantages of partnership. You still have the unlimited liability for the general partnership, and you see it in the managing partners, even in a limited partnership. So if something goes wrong, then, creditors could come after everybody in the partnership. Or if one partner screws up and they get sued, well, the business is getting sued, which means all the partners are getting sued. So you still have the unlimited liability aspect. Okay. There's a limited lifespan still to most partnerships. Maybe if one partner decides they want out, you can dissolve the partnership, but that can be difficult, right? Like I said, it can be like a business divorce. Some of them can be very amicable, and the split up could go quite nicely. You buy out that one person, or things can get really, really messy, especially if one of the partners thinks the other one is really screwed up, or cheated them, or something like that. All right, then it can easily wind up going to the courts to settle out. Okay. There's also potential for conflict. If you've ever watched like Kitchen Nightmares or something like that, right, where you have a business and not everybody always sees eye to eye, right? Or they have got different ideas of the direction the business should go, or what it is they should do. Or maybe one partner thinks the other partner is not pulling their weight, right? Here they are getting this percentage of the profit, and I'm doing 90% of the work, which means that they're getting half of my work, and I'm getting almost nothing out of them. All right, so there is a significant potential for conflict. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you know somebody else, maybe even your own parents, who were once involved in a partnership and it did not end well. Right? Never go into a partnership with a friend or family member unless you're willing to risk that relationship, lose that friend, or just maybe have awkward Thanksgiving dinners. And if you do go into a partnership with a friend or family member, do make sure you have a contract signed ahead of time. You establish what everything is. Okay. So with partnership, we got that stuff and lack of permanence. That goes along with a limited life. All right. So we'll stop there and come back to corporations in a little bit.